Hi everybody, welcome back to Mando Lessons. My name's Baron Collins Hill. In this week's lesson, we're going to take a quick little look at a question that I get a lot, and it's surrounding some misconceptions and misunderstandings surrounding key signature and the little sharps and flats that you might see next to the treble clef when you're reading standard notation. I'm going to be talking a little bit of music theory here. I'm going to make it so you don't need to know a whole lot. Jumping in, I'll explain as I go and kind of get everybody caught up. But if you're interested in more lessons on music theory or mandolin techniques, or want to jump into some more musical activities like learning some tunes, check out my website, mandolessons.com, and my YouTube channel here. I put out new lessons every week, so subscribe if you haven't already. All my lessons are always free. There are a couple ways to donate, which is greatly appreciated, including a Patreon page where you can get access to lessons early, patron-only live streams, things like that. All greatly appreciated, but not required, so let's jump into today's lesson. About once a month, I get an email from a mandolin player pointing out or asking about some discrepancies between the key signature I have listed in my sheet music and the key that I actually say a tune is in. Often this comes up with Swallowtail Jig, which is in, I say is in E minor, or Salt Creek, which is in, I say is in A. Now, where this is coming from is if you look at the sheet music and look at the standard notation, you'll see two little sharp symbols next to the treble clef. And what that often will sort of signify to people is that a tune is in D, because when you play a D major scale, you get a F sharp and a C sharp in that key signature. So you have D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Understandably, when people see two sharps next to the treble clef, their first thought is, this is in the key of D. And then I'll say something that goes against that, like, oh, this is in the key of E minor, or this is in the key of A. That sort of will set off a little red flag and they'll get a little confused. Now, what's going on here is a little bit of kind of folk music theory and a little bit of understanding modes. So let's jump into it and look at these scales a little closer. As I just pointed out, in the key of D, you have D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So our two sharps are F sharp and C sharp. And what we're going to be looking at is when I say Swallowtail Jig is in E minor, that actually is more appropriately, if you're using the names of the modes, that's in E Dorian, which is a minor mode. There are multiple minor modes, and this one has only F sharps and C sharps. So if you play up through the scale, you have E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, E. So it has the same number of sharps as D major, but you're starting and ending on an E note. That makes for E Dorian. And that is what is causing that E minor tune to come out with only two sharps. Likewise, with Salt Creek, it has two sharps. In the sheet music, if you look at the treble clef, there's just two sharps, an F sharp and a C sharp. And as we play through the tune, we get, and then sort of recreate the scale from what we know of the melody. We get an A major scale. But when we get to the seventh note of the scale, in regular A major, it would be a G sharp. But that's not what's happening in Salt Creek. We have A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G natural, and then A. And that, so you'll notice this by when you're playing Salt Creek. Right in that second little phrase there at the end of the A part, you hit that B, A, G natural, which makes that G, if you're looking at the key signature in standard notation, that's a G natural, not a G sharp, so your only sharps are F sharp and C sharp once again. And that happens in the A and B sections. So once again, the way we're explaining this is through modes, and while I say this is in the key of A, I am not saying that it's in the key of A major. It's actually in an A mode where the scale starts on an A and ends on an A, but has a G natural, and that's A mixolydian, which is a A mode where the seventh note of the scale is flattened a half step. So we have A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G natural, A. Taking that into account, that is why an A tune like Salt Creek, which kind of in traditional music theory, and by traditional I mean kind of folk music theory, you end up with people saying Salt Creek is in A. People will often not say that it's in A major. Sometimes they even will. Folk music theory doesn't always 100% line up with kind of classical music theory and kind of true music theory, but there is sort of, you can get used to what you're hearing from people, you know, or people will just call tunes modal tunes, and that can mean any number of things. So looking at the key signature in standard notation is a good way to know what sharps and flats you're going to need to play in the tune, but it's not necessarily going to give you the key. So if the key signature or the number of sharps or flats next to the treble clef aren't going to tell you what key something's in, how do you figure that out? My favorite ways are to look at the last note or last chord of a given tune. So if we use Salt Creek, the A part and the B part, because both parts end with the same phrase, end on an open A string. So that ends on an A, same with the B. Same thing, ends on an A. And if you look at the chords, A, G, A, D, E, A. Ends on an A chord, same with the B part. So the tune melody is ending on an A and the chord is ending on an A. That's a pretty surefire way to figure out that a tune is in A. Might not be A major, could be A mixolydian, could be A Dorian, or another A mode. But looking at that, that's going to give you your kind of key center and your tonal center of A rather than D. So as you're going along, playing tunes and thinking about what keys they're in, and you're looking at key signatures, always make sure that not only does the key signature line up with the number of actual sharps and flats in the tune, always look to sort of see where that tonal center is, rather than just assuming that something with two sharps is in the key of D. A lot of this comes from kind of traditional Irish whistle and pipes, where the most natural key and one of the few keys that you can actually play in, or number of sharps and flats you can play with, is 2, or D major. If you play right up the kind of holes on a D whistle or a set of pipes, you get. So that's a very natural key center to play in on the pipes or traditional whistle. And the same thing goes, what you're doing is you're just taking those same notes and starting and ending on a different note. So E Dorian is another classic Irish key because it fits very well on the pipes and whistle, because you are starting and ending on an E, but using the same sharps and flats. So you get E Dorian. And you'll also find A mixolydian tunes like Salt Creek, or plenty of Irish tunes as well. where you've got that G natural because it's not a sharp, because that's hard to play on the pipes and whistle. I hope you found that helpful. Take time every time you learn a tune to think about what sharps and flats are in the tune, and combine that with your knowledge and sense of where the tonal center is, and you'll get a handle on these modes and different scales. Modes can be a little mystifying at first, but if you do this practice, you can really start to understand what's going on with these scales and why things are flatted and why things are sharps. I put out new lessons every single week, so subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.